Hello, this is part 2 of Time Within the Electric Universe. If you listened to part 1, you'd know that we ended on the note of there being something beyond time, above time. Time itself is the creature or the puppet of a greater force. And we agreed we couldn't put our finger on what that greater force was. But we want really people to ask themselves different questions about what time is. Because time is one of those things that even if you didn't believe in it, it would still sort of take you up and carry you along. And we just take it for granted. And sometimes we think we've got to kill it or pass it or run against it, and actually it's none of those things are the correct way of perceiving it. So we're not saying there's only one right way of perceiving it. We're simply saying just look at maybe and talk about it's one of the most interesting subjects there are. So if we open our minds to what might be a wider understanding of time, how we use it, how it's affecting us, it, I think, automatically extends our ability to perceive reality differently, and that's a massive advantage within a linear world. I definitely think that time and space are one and the same thing. Definitely one and the same thing. And I think we incarnate at a space, a certain geographical, material, physical space at a point in what we call time. But I think it's like flicking a switch, because I think a time or a timeline starts from when we have a resonance within our material space, or we're born within that material space, and time starts, and experience and events seem to flow, or do flow, along that timeline within that space.
In life, basically.
That's right, because when we were discussing it off air, as it were, we were talking firstly about options and how life can change, and time. The time we're having, we'll say, oh, we're having a good time, or that time in my life when such and such happened. And that time, that experiential development within time can change very quickly, and all down to the choices you make.
Yes.
So the choice you make dictates what timeline you follow. So time is this stranded thing, I think. And this is, I think you can, if you imagine a circular base in which you can move around in various ways. You can go sideways, you can leap backwards and forwards. And if you think of yourself as always being in the centre, being able to go back to the centre, having gone to the right or to the left or backwards or forwards, coming back to that centre of yourself. And I think that is a better way to view time, in a way.
Before and after life. Before and or after alive.
After death, you mean?
Yeah,
physical death?
Or before life.
Yes.
I think time is part of everything. Because it's...
Yes, it's part of the hologram here. The hologram runs to a time. A holographic universe runs to a time scale, obviously.
Well, there is no time. But that's what's within this universe, if you like, is the passage of time is allowed to flow. But the thing that surrounds this universe sees all time, knows the future, the past, the present.
Yeah, because time is convoluted, it isn't linear.
That's it, yeah. So the perception of time from a plasmatic point of view, from an energy point of view, is the fact that it can witness every second. So
it can, and the unconscious doesn't know time, and I that was made apparent to me a few weeks ago when I asked myself why I kept going back to a certain stage in my life at that time, and I'm thinking, well, it's, you know, time doesn't heal necessarily the way people. It makes a difference, but does it heal? And then I thought, well, no, it's because at an unconscious level, you don't move away from certain things. There is no time between an event and where you are at any day or month or calendar month. You've actually just moved to the right or the left or backwards or forwards, and you can step back because of the 90% of the psyche or the mind which is unconscious, and the 10% being conscious is the thing that measures. But when you're asleep or when you're in a very relaxed state, you're more in that 90% of the subconscious or the unconscious, in which the psyche and the soul, related to the soul, knows everything that is important to itself, and so time ceases to exist.
Yes, I think if you remember things from the past, it doesn't matter whether it's from yesterday or from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's always going to be with you. The only thing that does kill it is the routine of time. You know, you do other things that make you forget about that time.
You do. I mean, I blogged recently about rituals and ceremonies, and I think when you perform a ritual, whether it's whatever it might be, whether it's a joint ritual or whether it's just something that you feel you have to do, making your tea at a certain time, or, you know, turning round 3 times and touching the lampshade before you go to sleep at night because that's a superstition. That ritual keeps you nailed to a certain way of being, a certain time in your life, or it's a way of making sense to life that passes very quickly, and this is time. You get swept away by time, and people find rituals and habits comforting because it means that things stay the same in a universe where there's constant change, or a world where there's constant change.
Well,
but it's whether that change is related to time or not.
Well, people are comfortable with what they know and where they are with what they
They
know.
are. Time is definitely a construct, and it's definitely open now for debate, and it's definitely one of the biggest issues. What we thought it was and what it actually might be are 2 different things. Well, there are many different things, because I mean it's only a stone's throw away from when people believed the Earth was flat.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was just there to keep us all thinking.
Well, yeah, but many people believed it. So what I mean is, when they found it wasn't.
It's whatever the current technology at the time was. I mean, nowadays the sun is like.
Yes. So what might we next discover about time? About the Earth and about time.
I was going to say that the sun, there's an atomic nuclear reaction going on at the centre, and that's just in line with what we know technologically today. So because of that, is that why the sun is like this? I don't think so.
Mm.
So this brings us to the point where the electric universe has a much better offering of what the sun actually is, which it is the greatest point of energy in this solar system. It is the centre, it is
the epicentre.
The epicentre of all the solar system, what happens within it. The boundaries are defined by it.
So can we somehow relate what you've just said about the sun to the subject of time in some way? Possibly.
I think for anyone interested in how the electric universe could possibly work from a technical point of view.
From a time point of view?
Well, it's to look at is to understand it. This is quite a new notion it's growing every week as far as I'm concerned.
It is.
The idea of the electric universe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 2 guys that I think that everyone should look at, and that's Wallace Thornhill and David Talbot. And these are the electric universe. These are taking this idea forward. And I think everyone needs to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, okay.
Because it is a paradigm. And once we change this paradigm that we're in, where the sun is a nuclear bomb, which I don't think it is, we'll always be stuck there if we're constantly thinking like this.
absurd to me that the sun is a nuclear bomb.
It's very much a male energy, isn't it? It's explosive, it's big, it's banging, it's like, and it's there right in your face.
It's just more than that, isn't it, though?
There's so much more. Oh, so much more.
If anybody doesn't understand the term holographic universe and how we mean it, there's a book by a guy called Michael Talbot, furthering the work of the two physicists in the 30s whose names escape me. But it's a brilliant book, and it's just called The Holographic Universe.
Yes, I've heard about that one.
Okay, so is that all we've got to say on the subject of time?
We can go on forever.
We could, but these musings and observations are just promptings to people's own thought and insights. One thing we are not is we're not an exact science channel. We are a metaphysical channel for growth and personal exploration. So time in an electric universe allows us space and motion in which to have our own unique experience.
I think one of the pieces of advice I'd like to give is just to enjoy the time that you have.
That's great advice. Yeah, that is. Yeah, it is.
I learned that very late in my life, and ever since I've done that, it's been wonderful.
Because though he sounds young, he's actually a really old man. Join us next time on The Electric Universe.